Hey, welcome back to Better Than Yourself. Today on Better Than Yourself, tempeh. Tempeh is one of those things that's definitely better than yourself. You know, are you making tempeh or are you... I just freeze mine. Tempeh is super easy to make. I just make it in Ziploc bags. And it's the simplest thing to make. You buy it in the supermarket, it's gross. It doesn't even look like tempeh. It's just some sort of like compressed bean cake. And I hate it. It's bitter and you have to soak it and steam it and try to get that bitter taste out of it. Tempeh doesn't taste like that. Tempeh is actually really delicious if you make it yourself. And but it's super simple to make. I'll go over the steps in this video and you'll see how simple this is to make. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take some soybeans, crack them, dehull them, boil them, and then, you know, once the beans are cooled off a little bit, we'll introduce the Rhizopus oligiosporus, which is basically a fungus that's going to break down the beans and make the soybeans actually nutritious. You can't eat raw soybeans, and a lot of people talk about soybeans, they're not really good for you, they're full of phytonutrients, they're full of estrogens, and using the fungus to pre-digest your beans is actually an awesome way to eat soybeans because they'll actually break down a lot of those phytonutrients. They'll break down a lot of those phytoestrogens. They'll break down a lot of what's in the soybeans, that you know, high protein food will get broken down into something that you can digest and eat. And so let's take a look at tempeh. This is the grain mill I use. I've got a link to it down below if you want to pick one of these up on Amazon. It was about $50. But it's a grain mill. Basically you set this plate real tight up against the fixed plate here, and as you turn the crank, there's an auger inside that pushes stuff forward and pushes it against this. And my little modification was that I put a couple of washers right here to space this plate apart. So when I'm grinding, what I'm grinding is these soybeans. The plates are just a little bit smaller than the width of a soybean. So it's not gonna grind it. I'm not gonna make soy flour. I'm just gonna crack the beans in half. So if all goes well, we can grind up all our soybeans. And some will break. Some are a little finer than I want. Some don't crack at all. But by and large, if you can crack 80% of them, all is good. And as I'm checking here, I'm sort of watching what I'm doing. I'm breaking, probably 90% of them. So I think I've got a good set here on my die. It actually comes with the little guard you can stick in there if you don't want the beans flying everywhere. But I was just showing you how it works. There. But mostly, we've got all broken in half soybeans. All right, we can get ready to soak these overnight. And then we'll just go ahead and add water to these. We'll fill these up. These will expand about 3 times their size, so we'll go ahead and just fill this bowl right up. And any opportunity I can to rinse some of these hulls away is a good thing. These are all empty hulls. You can leave them in. I mean, they're fiber. If you're looking to increase the fiber in your diet, you got some. I'll show you how we can get a lot of them off in the foam that comes up from these beans. But we'll just let these sit on the counter overnight and we'll boil these tomorrow. It looks like our overnight soak did well. We've got a little bit of bubbles forming on the surface here. This is good. This is indicative of a little bit of a lacto-fermentation that we had going on in the night, which is perfect for our soybeans because it's going to acidulate them. It's going to create that acid environment that the tempeh starter is going to like. And as you can see, our soybeans are, as promised, about 3 times bigger than they were last night when we were grinding them. So I think all in all, this is ready to go into a pot, and we can boil these for about 45 minutes. Let's get these on the stove. All right, so these will go into the pot. You can see how swollen they are after soaking overnight. Everybody in the pool, turn this on over high heat, and we'll let this come to a boil, and then we'll simmer it. I'm gonna simmer this total cook time for about 45 minutes. So we'll let this come up to a boil, and once it starts boiling and we get a bunch of foam on here, the hulls actually get trapped up in the foam, and we can scoop the rest of them out then. So let's just let this boil, and we'll come right back to this. And then look what starts happening. You get this foam from the protein in the soak water and all of the hulls. So you can literally just strain this out, scoop this out, and you're done taking your hulls out. Now this is completely optional. You can leave the hulls in there. They're great fiber, you can eat them. The whole reason why we wanted to take these hulls off of the soybeans was to allow the mold to get into the beans. These soybeans have real tough hulls on them, and if you don't take the hulls off, then your tempeh is not gonna work. So, but I'm just kind of showing you how you can get those loose hulls off of your beans. Yeah, there's a couple of beans in there, I don't care. I got a pound of beans here. So, but just give it a little bit of a stir, and then let the foam do the work. Let the foam take those hulls up. Once your 45 minutes of cooking time are up, find a whole soybean. They take the longest to cook, you know, because they've still got the hull on them. You know, this is one of the ones that didn't crack. So just give it a squish, and yeah, they're done. You know, like pretty much like you can just kind of, you saw what happened to it when I pushed it. Just kind of turns into mashed potatoes there. So now here, the beans are done cooking. I'm just gonna spread them out so they can cool. Basically what I want is these beans to come down to about body temperature, so we can inoculate them with the fungus. But these are boiling hot. I'm just gonna spread these out so they can cool off a little bit. You see me touching these beans with my hands. I wash my hands in between every time and make sure my hands are scrupulously clean. So like everything else that you're doing, you know, you don't want to introduce whatever bacteria this is into your tempeh, so my hands are super clean. Now these beans are starting to cool off. We can start thinking about culturing them with the mold that we're going to use. I just buy tempeh starter. You can buy this. This is Cultures from Health. Links below. You can pick some of this up on Amazon. There's 4 little packages in here. They actually make 2. Cultures from Health makes 2 of them. There's the traditional, which is the Rhizopus orzae culture, or you can actually buy a soy-free version of it for those of you that aren't doing your soy products. Maybe you're making you know, chickpea tempeh or something like that, and you want to get something that's soy-free. You can actually buy tempeh culture that is hasn't been cultured on soybeans. It's actually the other mold that you can use, which is the Rhizopus oleosporus. So, and you can tell them apart. There's a little tomato on this one, there's a cucumber on this one. So look for these, ask for them by name. I'm going to use just the standard traditional one because I'm doing a soybean tempeh, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the traditional, the soybean based one. And when you get these open, you'll find there's 4 packets in here. Each packet will do 2 cups of dry bean. So let's get this, let's let this cool off a little bit. All right, so here I'm looking at about 90 degrees, 90.8 degrees. So we're cooled off. Let's inoculate. Culture. The whole packet goes in. And then stir. This is really an important part, you can use very little inoculant. You saw there was probably 1/8 of a teaspoon in that whole envelope. But the problem with that is that it just takes longer stirring. You really need to make sure that you've got, inoculant on every bean. So, of course, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But just get everything mixed well here. We want to make sure it's inoculated as well as possible. And also I'm drying the beans here too. I'm getting the beans fairly dry and spilling some of them. And then there's the acid thing. I did an overnight soak on these, so I've got a little bit of acidity just from the lactic acid bacteria that was sort of fermenting these last night. You saw the bubbles when we were done soaking this morning. You can add, a tablespoon of vinegar to this. What that does is creates a little bit more hospitable environment to the fungus. It likes a little bit of an acid environment. Some people like to add a tablespoon or two of vinegar to the cooking water while they're cooking. Just anything to introduce a little bit of acidity to this. I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar in mine. And again, it really doesn't take much. All right, next we need to get this into the container that we're going to grow the mold in. The fungus needs a little bit of oxygen. That's why you don't grind the beans completely. You need that little bit of airspace in between the beans. You also, I'm gonna use just some Ziploc bags. Like 4 of them. And we're gonna poke some holes in them so that the air can get in and out of the bags. And I found the easiest way to do that is just a cooling rack and a wooden skewer. And then poke a hole every inch or so. Try not to go through any of your fingers. That way. All right. Now you've got these bags that have a little matrix of holes. Then you fill up your bags with your inoculated soybean mixture. What you're looking to make is something that you're basically forming what's going to be your tempeh cakes now. I like go about 1 inch thick and maybe half a bag full. Do something like that. And you can get a nice little tempeh cake for one here if you want to do that. Let's do that. But as you're filling these, think about, I always tell you, try to think about what your end result is. What's your goal? What are you trying to make? We're trying to make some tempeh cakes that are, will make a nice size slice, a nice thickness for frying or whatever you're going to make with them. And then literally, this is nice because you can kind of adjust how wide you want them just by giving it a little bit less slack here. And then, what do I got? Maybe 3/4 of an inch. And tighten that up a little bit. And go with our 1/2 inch size. There we go. All right, 2 down, 2 to go. How about one more? Awesome. And these bags are reusable. You can, you don't need to waste a bunch of brand new freezer bags every time you make tempeh. Wash these bags out and use them again. If you are of the opinion that plastic is evil and you don't want to use plastic, use banana leaves. Do the same thing and wrap these up in banana leaves. I really think that, I'm not quite sure how clean the banana leaves are at the market where I get them, so I really prefer using the plastic. And you want to make something like that. Now, this needs to go in the incubator. This needs to get held at about 88 degrees for about 1.5 days. So, of course, I've got a good way to do it. Let's take a look at my incubation setup. For my incubator, I've just got a standard picnic cooler and a meat thermometer, and it's got the dual probe. So basically what I like to do is have one in the water and then stick one in one of the blocks of tempeh, just because I'm that way. I like to keep my eye on everything. This is actually kind of a cool remote. This I use when I'm smoking, and I use it, it's got a remote. So I can see that the one probe is 86 degrees and the other probe is 85 degrees. And I can set an alarm, and there's some functionality in this. You can grab one of these links below. But the trick here, what's doing this is submersible aquarium thermometer with an adjustable setting on it. What you can do is basically just, this is a 150 watt aquarium thermometer, put it in the water, and I told you I wanted 88 degrees, which is right where I am. This is perfect. I can set my thermostat. You kind of twist the knob here on the end and you watch the little light. Light comes on, that means it's heating. So I've got it set too high. Turn this down a little bit, and that's where the thermostat's gonna kick on and off. So now I've got it set to maintain this temperature. So I've got my thermometer, I've got my probes, now I just need to add my tempeh. Now you're probably gonna wanna set this all up ahead of time and just give it an hour or two to sort of stabilize, just so you don't, cook anything, unintentionally. But, you make sure your water is about 90 degrees, that your thermostat is set, that your heater's working, that your thermometers are doing the right thing. And then at that point, I've just got a couple of jelly jars in here, and that rack that we saw a minute ago. And I can lay that all down in here. It doesn't quite fit. You might need 4 jelly jars. That was my original plan, but... And then you can just lay these right on here. Pop on the top. May fit better or worse depending on how thick these wires are, but just hold the heat in there. And we're done. Get your probe lined up so you can see what temp we've got inside. Oh, we were gonna put one of these right directly in there. And I've got my remote. I'm gonna set my alarm on my remote to do an alarm so I don't start cooking anything here. And I can keep this on me for the next day and a half and make sure my babies are safe. And we'll take a look at our tempeh when it's done. And then 36 hours later, provided your cooler trick worked and you've got, well, I've got 89 degrees on my tempeh block. When you open your cooler, you'll have a bunch of beautiful tempeh. This worked perfectly. I couldn't be any happier with this. This, the cakes have formed. Basically, you can just tear these bags apart if you don't plan on reusing them again. If you want, you can take a look at what we're dealing with. Nice and tender. So as you can see, I've got a nice tight curd. I've got, not a lot of gaps in there, so I don't think that the weighting is completely necessary. Some people do it as a matter of course. I found that I do pretty well without it. Funny story, the one block with that I had the probe stuck into set the alarm off last night at about 3:30. It started alarming. It broke 105 degrees, which was my set point on my thermometer. Woke my wife up, and we kind of ran around the house and remembered, oh, the tempeh, right, sure enough. So unplugged it, and it just continued on its merry way. And this worked great. So here's your tempeh recipe. Hope you enjoy it. If you have any comments about making tempeh, leave a comment down below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and learn some more fermenting recipes. Thanks for watching.